Hello and welcome back to Webcast News. I'm your host James Etheridge, and in today's video, parents punish their child by leaving him in a forest. The autopsy on the death of the musician Prince has been released, and the father of a serial killer's victim leaps a court table to attack the killer. But first of all, for the top story of today. And that top story is another please watch your kids, because that is apparently the moral of this week. A man going by the name Mr. Zhao was making a Lego structure for a Lego exhibit that was going on in China. The model was of Nick Wilde, the fox in the Disney movie Zootopia, and it was 1.8 meters tall with over 10,000 Lego bricks and took him 3 full days to complete. The structure was then valued at around about £10,000 and put on show at the Lego exhibit in China, and it lasted about an hour. Now this only lasted an hour because a 4-year-old child got hold of the structure after going under the ropes past a no touching sign and destroyed the structure in seconds flat. The parents of the child, obviously feeling terrible, apologised to Mr. Zhao and also reportedly offered to pay for the damages, to which I don't think they realised how much that had been valued at. I don't think they would be too willing to give over £10,000 in their currency. Mr. Zhao, however, actually refused the offer anyway, saying that the child didn't mean to break it. To which in a way I agree, the child's only 4 years old. Is this another one that's on the parents again? Does a child have the ability to get away with things being only 4 years old? Can it do anything and we can say, well, they're only 4? And this does have some similarities to the story from Cincinnati Zoo that I spoke about in the last video. If you haven't seen that, there'll be a link to it in the description down below. Obviously this is a lot less of a severe thing, there wasn't a child in danger at any point, but it's a similar case of parents taking their eye off their child and then the child doing something to affect something or someone. So again, as in the last video, I'd love to get your opinions on what you make of this story. Can it be the child's fault? Are they old enough at 4 to know what they're doing? Is it the parents' fault for not keeping an eye on their child? Is it even the exhibit's fault for not protecting the structure well enough? They literally just had a rope and a no touching sign. Could they have done more? I don't know. Let me know in the comment section down below. And then moving on, a story that came out of Japan that started just under a week ago and is only wrapping itself up around about now. And this one's been going pretty viral, so you may have already heard about it. It's about a 7-year-old boy who was left in a forest by his parents for a punishment. The incident went down on May 28th when 7-year-old Yamato Tanuka was being a bit of an annoying child and throwing stones at cars and at other people whilst on a family trip. The trip was to Hokkaido, which is the northernmost Japanese island. Now the parents, quite obviously, became quite annoyed at what their child was doing, but they didn't go about it in a normal way when it came to punishment. Initially, the father, Takayuki Tanuka, claimed to police that his child had disappeared. He had run off in the forest and they couldn't find him. However, he then later admitted what actually happened, and it's not clever. What actually happened was that when they were driving back, he and his wife became annoyed at what their son was doing, and they told him to get out of the car, and then they drove off. He then says that they drove about half a mile, then parked up, got out and walked back to the spot where they'd left their son, but he had then gone. He said that it was only about 5 minutes, but we're learning quickly, kids can do things very quickly when you're not looking. Now the father said that he made up the story of his son just disappearing because he was too scared to actually tell police of the actual story when he was getting the police to actually do a search for his son. More than 200 rescue workers, mounted police and local civilians were involved in the search, and then eventually military became involved. 6 days of searching ensued up until today, when the child was found alive, thankfully. They found him, funnily enough, at a military barracks in Shikobi town, and this military barracks is occupied. But it's also 4 miles away from where the parents actually left their child. He was found by a self-defense official who was actually part of a drill at the time, then found a child who looked around about 7, and the child introduced himself as Yamato Tanuka, the child that went missing. The child also told soldiers there that he had actually been in the barracks for a few days, but nobody had recognised him or found him. And one of the first things he actually said to the soldiers was, "I'm hungry," which is really unsurprising considering he'd been missing for 6 days. Probably wasn't able to get food at the military barracks because they didn't know he was there. Then the soldiers fed him, and then he was airlifted to a local hospital just for a check over. There were no obvious injuries to the child, so seemingly everyone got away with it. But it's actually quite lucky that he didn't sustain any injuries. Hokkaido forests are quite well known for a certain type of brown bear that roam the area, and if he'd run into one of them, there would have been trouble. I guess if we're taking morals of the story from the news stories of today's video, this one is, punishments, okay, yeah, your child needs to learn, but leaving them in a forest probably isn't a good one. And then there is an update on the unfortunate and sad death of the musician Prince. The obituary and the new report coming out on his death is that he died of an overdose of fentanyl, which is an opioid drug, and is also the drug that Michael Jackson died from overdosing on. The report also quashes theories that Prince had a form of AIDS or HIV as well, with Dr. Quinn Strobel saying that the body had no other significant conditions. Prince was actually booked in to meet a doctor about his opioid addiction, but sadly he died the day before the meeting. And the next step in this seems to be to try and find out who supplied the drugs to Prince, whether it was a prescription or whether he was getting it from an illegal source. And obviously it is a very sad story, and drug addictions are nothing to laugh at. They are a serious matter, but there is help out there. There are doctors, as Prince was actually arranged to meet, but just talking to someone about it as well is probably a good way to go about it. Prince's drug addiction was known, but not a lot of support was ever given. And then for the final news story of this video, an incredible incident that happened at the Cuyahoga County Court. This happened in Ohio, America, and involved the father of a serial killer's victim and the serial killer himself. Michael Madison had minutes earlier been sentenced to death by lethal injection. Van Terry then came up to speak about his family's loss, Van Terry being the father of 18-year-old victim Sherelda Terry.
Good afternoon, sir.
How you doing, Your Honor? My name is Van Terry. Father Sherelda Terry. Right now, I guess we're supposed to, in our hearts, forgive this clown who's touched our families, taken my child.
So to quickly explain the video, Van Terry comes up, he says who he is to the judge, says why he's there, that he's the father of one of the victims. Now if you don't quite catch what he actually says before he then jumps at Madison, he said, "Right now, I guess we're supposed to, in our hearts, forgive this clown who has touched our families, taken my child." Then the pause, and then he leaps at Madison, trying to attack him. And in all honesty, I can't say anything bad about what Van Terry did. I would want to do a hell of a lot worse if somebody killed someone in my family. Honestly, I can't understand the whole father-to-daughter thing. I'm only 19. I obviously don't have any kids. But I'd like to think that if in the future someone killed my kid, I don't even know what I'd do. And if the person who had killed one of my family members, or in this case, their child, I want to do a whole lot worse. I would torture them. I mean, that may sound bad, but it's just where you'd go with it. As I mentioned, Michael Madison was a serial killer, and there were 2 other victims that he also killed. These being 38-year-old Angela Deskins and 28-year-old Shatisha Sheel. And in this, thoughts go out to the friends and family of all 3 victims, and I'm very glad that Madison is being killed. And let me know in the comment section down below, do you think what Van Terry did was wrong? Should he obviously have restrained himself? There are shouts that you can hear in the video of no, people trying to get him to not do it, but obviously he did. And also, do you go along with my opinion on this, where you would want to do a whole lot worse to Michael Madison for what he'd done if it was your family involved in this news story and in what happened? Or are you a lot more patient than I am, obviously, and a lot more forgiving than I would be in a situation like this? And also, with all of the previous news stories as well, make sure you go into the comment section down below and leave your opinions on any of the news stories I've spoken about. And on that note, that is it for this video. If you have liked it, make sure you hit the like button and also subscribe to the channel for more videos in the future. The Facebook page and Twitter for the channel will also be on the screen right now, so you can go and check those out as well. And as always, thanks for watching.